This is Sybert signing into Red Alert 3 on the map, Infinity Isle on the right side as the Cyan Soviets. This is Berat. And on the left side as the Orange Empire, this is Bashley. B. Ashley. Going for that orange versus cyan kind of action. Empire versus Soviets. People always love that, or at least they say they do. Aha! This is also something that people sometimes talk about. Wait, is this conscripts? Huh, okay, Berat is going 5 conscripts into that bunker. He is also nuking this civ structure there on kind of the north side of the island. And this one here will stand. I know some players like to do that to stop, you know, flak troopers or javelin troopers from jumping inside of that, but, like, I don't know that tank busters are going to do a whole lot there. And well, 3 out of the 4 Imperial warriors get taken down. Bashley going to be learning the power of that battle bunker. That's, you know, relatively cheap investment overall. Especially since I think that 5th conscript that went in there was actually from being sold off, from the barracks being sold off. So that conscript is extremely cheap relative to the rest of the stuff, because you're getting other stuff with the barracks, not just that one conscript. Otherwise, it would be an expensive conscript. Terror drone in the south going to be looking for, I mean, really, he's looking for this. He's looking for that water expansion to find something, but there's nothing going to be there. And other than that, Bashley has walled in his refineries, so nothing to be worried about there. Super reactor out on the water. 3rd refinery going to be underway soon for Berat. Right there, starts it. And hammer tanks starting to form up the front line. This hammer tank actually going a little bit far into the territory of Bashley. Sickle going to be going for the jump. Now the Terror Drone comes in. The Sickle gets eliminated, and the Terror Drone going to have to run away as that Tengu is giving a little bit of chase. Bashley, with no Tengus in a position to try and stop that Terror Drone, will kind of be losing out on that opportunity. Berat, with just this single hammer tank, going to be trying to find some kind of damage, will be forcing some lost mining time. Not the biggest of deals, but he is going to go even deeper into the territory of Bashley. I do love bringing the barrel along just to shut down, or at the very least delay, the tank busters from being able to close the distance, force that Tengu to drop down and deal with that. This attack from Berat is actually so perfect in a lot of ways, and the Terror Drone going to be able to come in, get the kill on 2, no, even 3 of those tank busters almost. The 3rd one he actually closed the distance on. This attack from Berat is great. Double Tengu harass going to be coming in for Bashley. And it looks like the harvesters are going to be escaping, at least for now. And one of the, something ended up going down there. I think one of the Tengus ended up going down there, and well, I don't know why those wall segments were rebuilt. Oh, he's trying to stop the hammer tank from going for the crush of that tank buster. But in this case, these 3 tank busters will eventually clean up that hammer tank, and both sides somewhat successfully executing harassment. First Twin Blade is out, does get spotted there by Bashley, so he does know that that's on the way. Crusher Crane also going to be getting dropped down right next to this ore collector, and a Bullfrog's getting some free shots off on these Tengus. So the Tengu's trying to dive on that Twin Blade, but they're not quite going to be able to make it happen. Harvester on the high ground also going to be getting pulled back, pulled off the line, and all 3 of these Tengus from Bashley extremely low on health. There's the transform of that Tengu. Perfect control from Bashley in terms of trying to escape, but unable to actually escape, as the Bullfrog does catch that Tengu. And the Tengu is still harassing over here, but with 3 Bullfrogs on top of it, there is no escape for that Tengu. May as well stay down there. Get a little bit of that honorable discharge damage off as well. Tengu's forming up a little grid there for Bashley. No tier 2 just yet. Wouldn't be a bad idea to start that in the next minute or so. Tier 2 delay is definitely not a problem in this particular situation with just how this game has kind of shaped up with the, third base on the high ground and all that. So nothing really too bizarre here from Bashley in delaying that Tier 2. Airfield and ore refinery out here on the water. Those 4 refineries, fairly standard for the way Berat was opening up this game with that super reactor out there on the water. And this ore collector taking a lot of damage initially, but now the SimCity actually providing a little bit of problems here for those Tengus in terms of being able to quickly and efficiently clean up these harvesters. The combination Tank Buster surprise in this sudden transport going to be actually quite effective in terms of this harassment. This is causing a lot of problems for Berat, who has put pretty much all of his eggs in one basket. He has dropped down this naval yard here, so he has a little bit of a backup plan, but his economy is wrecked as there is not a whole lot else he's got going on, honestly. He doesn't have much. He's got this harvester back up and running, but the other 2 harvesters being eliminated is going to take a minute for him to get enough cash to put that back to work. And now even his turret bush here, which was maybe ill-advised in the beginning, is now completely offline, and Berat getting turned around here by Bashley. This is so many Tengus, a little bit of stutter step on top of that MCV. Not even worried about the crushes. If Berat ended up trying to turn around, he could get a couple of crushes, and it doesn't even matter because the MCV went down anyways. Now, keep in mind the Crusher Crane is still here. The War Factory has already been constructed, and these Bullfrogs going to be getting some free damage off on these Tengus. A mistake to transform all of those Tengus in that way, unless Bashley truly did just want to pull back from that assault, didn't want to press his luck any further. Three hammer tanks on the ground, and losing that MCV is going to be problematic as the game goes on. Not having access to those support powers is going to be making some of these situations in the future more difficult for Bashley, or for Berat. But at the current moment, he's got all 4 of his refineries back online. That's a full refinery advantage. Of course, Oil Derrick under control for both players. And for now, those Tengus, they're going to be looking for the weak point. They're going to be looking for the opening in Berat's armor. And in this case, well, it looks like one hammer tank going to be given away here by Berat. Bashley keeping his other hammer tanks kind of away, but also near the repair drones of that War Factory, just so that he can kind of manage his army a little bit better there. One harvester going down, a second one could potentially be under threat as these tank busters jump out of that sudden transport in just a moment there. Tanks getting caught up on tanks, and Berat is going to have to call off this attack as he turns tail and runs away. Bashley still not unloading this particular sudden transport, and goodbye airfield. At the current moment, it looks like Bashley is just going to be able to take this game pretty clearly here. A couple of more mistakes like that, and maybe not so clearly after all. Losing the 4th refinery out on the water, losing the super reactor, losing the airfield, all big deals here for Berat. He does actually manage to sell off the refinery, which is definitely nice for Berat, but yeah, that super reactor, that sucks. He's pretty much locked into his army at this point. He can reinforce with sickles, he could reinforce with terror drones or bullfrogs, but other than that, his production is pretty set. Super reactor has actually been rebuilt on the high ground, so this one goes down out here on the water, but more hammer tanks could still be on the way. There's the transform of the Tengus, and for now, these 5 hammer tanks going to be holding extremely well, considering that the tsunami tanks weren't really doing too much in this battle. But at the current moment, the overwhelming forces are certainly on the side of Bashley. He does turn around, activating those nano deflectors on the tsunami tank, so they can't actually use that main gun. They do get a little bit of extra health, but this is 3 hammer tanks, 2 of them with 2 guns on them and 1 fully heroic. As you can see, they actually do shred tsunami tanks pretty darn quickly here, and the tank busters are pretty much useless as the bears have negated their ability to actually participate in this battle. There they pop up. A couple of them do get crushed by that heroic hammer tank, and Bashley losing almost all of his tanks, but finally there, he does destroy the last couple of tanks of Berat, and resetting the tank count of Berat is going to make the next attack that much weaker. All of the bullfrogs on the front line mean that the Crusher Crane got eliminated. A great move there by Bashley. And honestly, keeping Berat's army here on the front line, even sacrificing tanks to do it, and, you know, taking a worse engagement than he needed to take, is all worth it for killing that Crusher Crane and basically securing that there will not be any rebuilding unless Berat wants to go through the process of rebuilding his MCV, which ties up his build queue on his war factory for quite some amount of time. Actually, no, he can do it over here. I completely forgot about that naval yard, so he does have an opportunity to not tie up his build queue of his war factory, but instead to still spend that 5,000 credits getting out an MCV a different way. And that is exactly what he is doing. But as you can see, strapped for cash with difficulties in production as these two Tengus trying to go for a bit of a harass, but it's not really going to work. Activating the armor just to stop that falling Tengu from doing any additional damage. And we are up to 6 Tsunami tanks, make that 7 Tsunami tanks, and Tier 3 will soon be on the way for Bashley. Berat playing extremely aggressive in his positioning. 6 hammer tanks as well. This guy does know how to build hammer tanks. You have to give it to him there. But again, his difficulty has often been in defending that. That's a bit unfortunate, as that Terror Drone may actually get an infect of that. Oh, satellites. Oh no. Desolator airstrike going to be getting called down. And the Terror Drone does indeed get the infect. Bashley unable to close this game out. A little bit unfortunate for him, as Berat's defense has gotten a couple of upgrades as of late, and these Tengus going to be trying to find a place to escape. They do get close to the water before they transform, as the bullfrogs were lagging a little bit behind, and that MCV is now up and running. So that's quite the investment for Berat to get back online with that MCV. But I mean, hey, if that gets his harvesters back online, it gets him another Crusher Crane, then it may be worth it long term, as Berat has kind of clawed himself away back into this game. Saving the super reactor was certainly the right call there, and pretty much the only reason he's still in this game is that he rebuilt that super reactor in time. And nice little stop micro coming out there from Berat, able to kill both of those Tengus instead of trying to go for the infect or only stasising one. He did get both of them. And now we're starting to see Berat play more like himself and really bringing out some good decision making and just some solid control of his units. MCV here on the low ground drops an ore refinery before moving along, so it is going to be 4 refinery economy once again for Berat. He has been ahead on economy for the majority of this game in terms of refineries, but those refineries have, of course, not always been working, and he has had to rebuild quite a few harvesters. You definitely have to give it to Bashley for being the one to set the tempo of the game, for setting the pace and controlling where things are happening. Psionic Decimator now out on the field, as this Crusher Crane is going to be getting targeted down. No, I guess it's not. He's going to be calling everything back to the front lines. I think there was a little bit of a WW tap there coming out from Bashley. So he calls these tank busters to the front line just to get them murdered by those bears. A bad call there by Bashley, as he unfortunately lost those tank busters when there was no need, and he could have finished killing off this Crusher Crane. He could have maybe even got a bit of damage beyond that. Wave Force Artillery, 2 of them on the front line, going to be chewing it through these hammer tanks. And the Tsunami tanks are going to be holding the line along with these tank busters. Tank busters down into the ground as the Tsunami tanks deal with the bears quite nicely there. Well done by Bashley to eliminate all of those bears without losing any of the tank busters. All the while, of course, the Wave Force Artillery punching away, just firing shot after shot. And it looks like Desolator Airstrike going to be dropping toxins directly onto one of the Wave Force Artilleries. All of the tanks of Berat get eaten up by the tanks of Bashley, and 2 infect as those Terror Drone surprises cause some real problems for Bashley. He could activate Nano Deflectors and try and run them back, and instead he decides to give it a premium target for these terror drones to potentially infect a Wave Force artillery. Wave Force artillery getting a little bit caught up on the tsunami tanks as King Onis make their way to the front line, and I think finally Bashley may be able to take this game. One last hammer tank, two last hammer tanks going to be going away from the front line as a heroic Wave Force artillery is born, as both of these Wave Force artillery going heroic. And Bashley has been able to crush the high ground main base of Berat. Going to be eliminating a couple of conscripts there as well. Berat going to be running out onto the water where a couple of Tengus still are waiting for him. And Bashley going to be able to seal up this game quite nicely. The Psionic Decimator will not be seen, it seems, in this game. Just for the lulz, they could last this one out for another 3.5 minutes. But functionally, there isn't much left for Berat. Bull Rush gets both of those hammer tanks, and that's pretty much the last of the standing army for Berat. They may actually be typing in chat to each other, just kind of, going over the game or discussing the use of the Psionic Decimator, anything like that. As Bashley going to be potentially just surrounding this MCV with Tengus. Berat, for all of his economy, for all of his opportunities he was trying to create, never able to actually get up and take it to Bashley. He did try a number of times, but Bashley was just a little bit too far ahead in when all of those engagements actually happened. And I'm curious on that resource graph. Yeah, so even though there were 4 refineries out on the field for Berat for a lot of that time, the actual income was relatively even until basically the end there. And wow, basically within 1,000, within 300 credits of each other overall for the entirety of that game. But Bashley getting a lot more value for most of that game than Berat, and having to rebuild that MCV is never fun. Having to rebuild the super reactor, never good either. But that will do it for Berat and Bashley. Of course, Bashley going to be smurfing as gamer down there, and that will do it for this game. Thank you all very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and this is Sybert signing out.